Some of you may know that we got into new thin Arabians, but what you may not know is that we actually had a really scary experience with them a couple weeks ago. So these two girls we took in from a sheriff's seizure case, and they're two Arabian mares, both pretty young, and they're a little skittish, but the gray's a bit more friendly. And so this was the day we brought them home, and the sheriff had been caring for him for a couple weeks at this time, so they gained a little bit of weight, but um, they asked us to take them in, because they didn't have quite the capacity to care for them as often, and so we took them in, and the bay mare was definitely a little bit more worried. They both loaded into the trailer. It took a bit to halter the bay, but we were able to get them both in the trailer through leading, which was awesome. And it's great to have them both a bit more halterable. And yeah, we think the little bay is about 4 years old, and the gray is about 5 or 6. And we cared for them for about a month before they were turned over to our care, but so we didn't get a chance to get to know them super well. But that day they unloaded really well, and we were really happy with that. And they just kind of settled right in and started eating and made themselves at home. Yeah, so the bay is more dominant, and the gray is a bit thinner than the bay, but they're both pretty thin. And so a couple weeks after that, some weather was coming in, and we were supposed to get some snow. And because they were so skinny, we wanted to put blankets on them. And we didn't really know how they were going to react, how they were going to respond. I had a feeling that they probably weren't super used to having blankets on. This girl was pretty good for me to catch. And they were actually quite curious about the blankets, which was cool. It was good that they weren't just totally running the other way. So here I kind of make her follow it at her own distance, but it can help give them confidence to move towards something that they're afraid of and have it be okay. So she was checking it out. They both were. But thinner horses have a harder time keeping warm, and they had access to shelter, but they didn't always use it, so we wanted to make sure they wouldn't get wet and frozen. So I started rubbing it on her. And I could tell she was a little nervous, but she was trying. And I decided to start with her because the little bay is quite a bit less friendly, especially when you get a halter in your hand. This was good. She saw it out of both eyes. She reached over to see what it was and give it a sniff. And So I asked her to move because I didn't want her to be frozen and suddenly move and get scared that it was moving with her. So I kind of reminded her to move before I tried to buckle any of the straps on her. And I was able to get the front straps on her, since those would be the most important if she got spooked and ran. If it was only back straps, then she could get in trouble. But here she felt the straps hitting her in the back legs, and it made her nervous. But she was okay. She came down really nicely, and at that point I realized that she was far too skinny for this blanket because the neck piece was really big. But then we started noticing the bay was doing this, which was really scary. We hadn't really seen a horse do that before, and they're not supposed to, so we immediately rushed to the vet because we were worried about choke. And we were right. Luckily, she seemed to have passed anything that was obstructing her right at the vet, but they did scope her and make sure that she didn't have anything wedged in there, and they gave her some antibiotics just to make sure she didn't get a respiratory infection or anything from that. And while we were waiting for her to wake up, we undid the knots in the gray girl's mane, and we were able to get a blanket on the bay while she was sedated. And luckily she was okay. And yeah, a few days after, we were able to get them haltered again and give them some love, brush out their manes, and just spend a little bit of time with them, hanging out with them, getting to know them. They're very sweet. They mostly ate and just hung out.